Okay, good morning. My name is Gary Matsuoka, and we're here at Laguna Hills Nursery on a Saturday morning. And today's class is one we've never done before. We haven't had a collection of vines this nice in a while. So this week the class is on my favorite vines. And be aware we're in Southern California in Orange County where a lot of these things will work. We do have frost considerations, so a lot of these vines can't take frost. But we'll start with the star of the show this week. I haven't had this vine offered. I couldn't offer this vine for many years. It's called Cryptostegia grandiflora, or the rubber vine. It's from Africa. We have a big specimen in the nursery, and they bloom most of the warm season with flowers like this. Very succulent leaves, spectacular plant. It's actually kind of a shrubby vine, so you can keep this pruned as a shrub in your garden or let it go as a vine. It will go quite a ways. In its native areas and throughout the tropics, it's become a bad weed. Here it behaves pretty nicely. We don't have the weather they do in the tropics, but it's also known to be very difficult to propagate. The plant I have in the yard is one of two I've been able to propagate from cuttings. They're supposed to be really difficult to grow from cuttings, and I would say I've had maybe success of 2 out of 100 cuttings we've tried have made it. However, they can be grown through air layering. So these vines, let's see, this one is an air layer, as is this and this one of that vine. So a lot of difficult plants you can propagate by air layering. The seeds of this plant actually grow fine. However, it takes about 5 years from seed to get flowers, and so far most of the flowers have turned out to be a very pale pink and sometimes white. We haven't seen a nice purple one come out of that yet. So we have 3 air layers that my daughter did a few years ago, so it takes a while to get these started. Once they start, they're pretty fast. But probably the most, one nursery offered these maybe 30 years ago and haven't offered it since. So apparently it is not the easiest thing to grow to propagate. It is just as easy as any other vine to grow once you have it started. And I only have the 3 here available. They're $150. Air layering is an extensive, well, it takes time, and it takes a little more effort than most things to do, but it is absolutely gorgeous vine. So that's Cryptostegia, our rubber vine, and this would be considered a purple rubber vine because they do come in different colors. Another plant close related from a similar area of the world would be your Stephanotus, which we never seem to have enough of. Several of our growers grow these, but we have, in order to make them customer friendly, we change the dirt on them, get them into some better dirt, because they do tend to rot easily when our growers get a hold of them with the compost based soil. So this was one we rescued a few years ago, or last year, from one of our suppliers who had them in a 2-gallon pot with compost. We put them in a 3-gallon pot. So Stephanotus can grow in sun or shade as long as it's not dark shade. If it's light shade, they bloom fine. They'll take full sun if they've got healthy roots. So a lot of the literature says put the roots in the shade and the tops in the sun. Well, they do that because hot compost rots the roots much easier than cool compost. But once you get it in the right soil, there's no issue with that either. These have been standing pretty much in sun all year. So that's Stephanotus, and they're fragrant. This is also known as the bridal veil vine. It is from Madagascar, so they call it Madagascar Jasmine. It is not related to the other jasmines. And they'll bloom during the warm season, so that's, you know, we've seen them bloom 3 seasons of the year, so they're nice that way. And we've seen them grow about 20 foot long. The next vine we're real excited to have is the sandpaper vine, Petrea volubilis. In fact, I do need to bring my one moment. So this vine, we've been working on it for, I think this is the 3rd year now. It takes them a while to get any size. Our Petreas, which are also known as Queen's Wreath, but most people call them sandpaper vine because they've got kind of a rough surface on the leaves. We've had one bloom a little bit this year. We expect all these to be blooming next year very nicely. And here's a photo of the flowers. So they look like clusters hanging in like a wisteria. They're one of the most interesting vines I know. So the nice things about Petrea, again, sandpaper vine, it is from Mexico. We've seen it bloom year round. So once it gets blooming, it's really nice and colorful, especially in a hot location, south side. I used to grow on the north side of my house. Only blooms about half the year there, but on the south side, one of our customers kept showing me photos of his on the south side of his house, just constantly blooming. The flower clusters are about a foot, maybe a little over a foot long. And like a lot of vines, most of the flower is a bract, which is not a true flower. It lasts for like a month. And then the darkest purple parts of the flower are the true flower. So they're that light purple bract that hangs down for a long time. And then the true darker purple flowers open up just briefly. And the neatest thing about it that I think is unique is that the flowers of this vine are also the way it transports its seeds. So the bract got 5 parts. And what happens after it blooms is it forms a seed pod in the center on the back of it, about the size of a pea, a small pea. And when it's mature, this acts like a little helicopter. So if there's any breeze at all, you can see these seed pods just taking off and going about 20 feet from the base of the mother plant or wherever it was launched from. So it actually looks like, and you can take these and just throw them on their little helicopters. So it's kind of a neat way to transport your seeds away from the mother plant. If that vine was, higher, because mine was only 10 foot off the ground, but you can imagine if it was up in a tree 20 foot, those things probably helicopter out a couple 100 feet on a windy day. So that's a real efficient method of getting your seeds out there. But the other thing we like about Petrea is it blooms on short branches. So most vines that are popular well, a lot of them anyway, like the trumpet vines, which I didn't bring in here today. The blood red trumpet and the royal trumpet vine have to grow about 5 or 6 feet before they bloom. So they bloom on the ends of new growth, 5 or 6 feet, they bloom. This thing has to grow a few inches and it blooms. So as landscapers have always told me they like this vine because it doesn't run away on their customers. You can cover an object maybe 10 foot and you really don't have to do much trimming because it blooms on all the old growth. It just keeps blooming on these real short spikes over and over. The same area blooms. Whereas when I had a blood red trumpet vine on my house, it would cover my entire house if I didn't cut it back constantly. And then every time you cut it back, you cut off all the potential blooms, and then it's got to grow another 6 feet to bloom again. It's already covering your house again. Whereas this thing, it blooms on the same wood all the time. So very nice that way. So it took us 3 years to grow these things to a height that's sellable. Last year they were like 6 inches tall. So they're growing a lot faster now that they have some size. And this year, fortunately, we had actually a portion of the year that was warmer than normal. Our weather lately has been quite cool for these tropical vines. Anyway, that's Petrea volubilis. Another one that I do like a lot. The Alamandas. Which have a very spectacular bloom. We don't have many suppliers to grow this one, so these Alamanda, they're from tropical America, and this is the brown bud Alamanda because the buds are brown before they open bright yellow. But at my house, I'd put this on the south wall of my house. In the wintertime, they get a little bit yellow. The foliage turns a little yellow. They're just now recovering because we had some heat last month. And they'll bloom all the way into December, or even a little bit into January before they give up from the cool weather. And then they'll start again around May with their flowers. So this one, not real fast growing. You can keep them on a small structure compared to some vines that grow 25 foot in a year. This one may be 5 foot in a year, 4 or 5 foot. So that's the Alamanda. Now our best-selling vines are close related. From the same area of the world, the tropical Americas, that's your Mandevillas, sometimes called Diplodenia. The original Mandevillas that we sold 40 years ago had larger leaves. They were more vine-like with bigger flowers, such as this one. Nowadays, they fill a different role. So most of the Mandevillas we sell nowadays are used in hanging baskets. They don't quite grow as fast. I mean, some of them grow, they still can be tall vines, but most of them branch really heavily. You can see how heavily this one's branching. So they generally can stay in smaller pots. In my house, we use them in hanging baskets and hang them up in full sun to part sun. They can bloom year-round. And they've turned out to be one of the best container plants. So if you want a plant that blooms constantly, spills over the sides of a container, is resistant to drought damage. Mandevillas can fill it. The newest color, so the original colors we had were pink, and then they brought out kind of a crimson or red and a white. And now then they brought out yellows, and now we have apricot and orange. And the latest thing we got last year was what they call blueforia, which is close. You can actually say, well, okay, that looks blue. And all these great in containers and in hanging baskets. Just good for that. Full sun to light shade. They do a little better in more sun, but they've done quite well in a lot of shade at my own house. Now these are in the same family as the common vine we won't talk much about. This is star jasmine, which is from Asia, and they're related to Alamandas and the Mandevillas, but this is real common. We don't need to talk about that one. Okay, we're happy to have some wisteria. So, unfortunately, about 5 years ago, no, it's been longer than that, 7 years ago, our main supplier of grafted wisteria vines pretty much changed their business, and we couldn't get many wisterias from them. So wisterias give you that spectacular. Uh-oh. The spectacular spring show, usually it's April, of clusters of flowers that hang down about a foot that are real fragrant. I mean, you can usually smell them from 20 foot away when they're in full bloom. So wisterias come mostly from Asia. This is actually from eastern North America. And it's interesting. You look at the textbooks and they say they're only native to Eastern Asia and Eastern North America. How'd they get from there to there without being all the way around the world? But this is an American one called Amethyst Falls, this color. And the ones we usually get are the ones that usually repeat their bloom. So in April, expect this to be like this. And then, now this plant's, we got it this year, it was like a foot tall. So it's not very mature yet. It can grow fast. Now, just know the American wisterias don't do anything like the Asian ones. The Asian ones, you can grow 30, 40 foot in a year. The American ones, 10, 15 foot in a year. They're much more tame than the Asian ones, but they can also bloom lightly all summer and into fall. So this is called Amethyst Falls Wisteria. And usually you use it to, put it on a patio roof or on the eaves of a house. It's really, really showy and fragrant. So that's one nice thing about wisteria is their fragrance really, but their show is just spectacular. So. Now another vine we're real happy to have at the moment. So the Thunbergia family of vines are from Africa and Asia, so the old world. And I thought I brought one of the common ones we saw in here, but apparently I didn't. So it's the black-eyed Susan vines, which are yellow with the black center. But the spectacular ones that we're glad to have right now, we've got two. This one here, Thunbergia mysorensis. which is brick and butter vine. And it's got just a few flowers. It's kind of a young plant still, but here's the cluster of flowers starting to grow. These clusters of flowers can reach 3 foot. So they have a brick colored case, and then a yellow flower comes out of it. And I will show you what that looks like. So when they're hanging, they're quite striking. They give you a really nice look. So the best way to, if you want to really show off this vine, you grow it on a gazebo or a pergola or a lath patio roof, because the foliage would be on top, and then these things will hang down 2 to 3 feet. Just spectacular bloom. And they can bloom most of the year. They bloom best when it's hot, but they can make some flowers any time of the year. That's one of the most striking vines, or the most unusual vines that you'll see blooming, is the brick and butter vine. So that's Thunbergia mysorensis. Now this one I searched out for decades before I found them. This is the Thunbergia grandiflora. We do have a grower that actually grows these. If you've been to the San Diego Zoo in your lifetime, they have these there. Quite a different flower. My photo disappeared. 1 second. So the flowers are close to being sky blue. Small clusters, you get about 5 flowers at a time. The flowers are they're quite large, about like that. It can bloom year round. It's not as heavy a bloomer as the other one, but still that color, just really close to a true blue. Here's the flower just starting to open up. This one grows really fast. I mean, I've seen what I thought was 20 foot in a month, so you have to be careful. You know, when you see these being used, they're used on structures that are not close to other structures, so that they don't suddenly transfer to the next structure and keep on going. So if you have a freestanding pergola or freestanding gazebo, it's safer. I had mine on a trellis next to a tree, and before I knew it, it was at the top of that tree. And I kept cutting it down. It was too close, so it kept on taking over the tree, but certainly gorgeous flowers on it. Not easy to find this vine either. Okay, we did buy in some Clematis this year. Now these are baby plants. I mean, they were just propagated probably late last year. So the flowers are about half the normal size. So Clematis flowers can grow, a lot of the varieties can grow 5 inches. Some are even bigger than that. This is one with slightly smaller flowers. These only get up to maybe 4 inches. And they generally, the Clematis, Clematis are from China. Most of them bloom spring and then repeat in summer, and some also bloom in fall. They look really delicate, and they are, when they're young, the branches are quite brittle. And we've broken them many times just by handling. The fortunate thing about them is they generally have really strong tuberous roots that store a lot of energy. So a lot of times you break the top off, you go, okay, that's it, and then it grows right back from the dirt. They do go, this is a deciduous vine. They look pretty dead in the winter. Sometimes you go, okay, I swear it's gone. It's never going to grow again. And then around April, it just comes right back up and starts blooming again. Now, they made up a lot of rules over the years because clematis don't like the soil that the growers are using. You know, that compost-based soil tends to rot them very easily. And for that reason, they say, well, make sure the roots stay cool. Cool soil rots slower than hot dirt does. So they made up all these rules to plant them on, you know, put the compost-based soil underneath the rock somehow so it stayed cooler when exposed to the sun. They told you to put them in more shade. Clematis don't like it too dark. They'd rather be in, say, at least half a day of sun. And we've kept them in full sun. In our soil, you can set them out on a 100-degree sidewalk, and they seem to do okay. So they're fairly sturdy plants that way. Once you get everything right, they're not that difficult. Just remember, the stems are brittle. They're interesting because the leaf stems are what they twine with. So the leaves twine around objects. And then they do say that they make kind of difficult to prune because some clematis only bloom on older wood that grew last year, and some grow on new wood, and some bloom on both. So they have different pruning methods for the different ways they bloom. Most of the, quote, companies that sell them say don't listen to them. I mean, they say just whatever clematis you have, cut it down to about 2 foot in the winter, at the end of winter, and it'll do fine. It'll have old growth. It'll have plenty of new growth. You'll get your good flowers on it if you just prune it down to about 2 foot. There are evergreen clematis. We haven't fallen in love with them at all. They have white flowers, small white flowers, not as showy. Okay, let's see. We do grow bougainvilleas. Right now we're out of big red ones, but the bougainvilleas they're native to Brazil, South America mostly. And you can use them as a big bush. You can use them as a vine. There are some that are more suited for vines. Now be aware that there are some out there that won't take our winters. So there is one that came out, it was called the Singapore series. And it is a thornless, kind of floppy little bush that blooms most of the year, but it's extremely sensitive to cool. I mean, it seems like they die at 40 degrees, 45 maybe, they just don't make it. Whereas the normal bougainvilleas have survived every frost we've had down to 23 in this area. But the little window box series, the Singapore series, which has different names now, and is spineless. So these do develop spines as they grow. So they're a little sensitive. Now the nice thing about bougainvilleas is you can keep them like a hedge or like a bush. The more you trim them, the more they bloom. So they're good that way. You trim them, they bloom. You trim them, they bloom. So they're suitable for fairly tight spots. And there are some that are shorter growing that we use as hedges, as short hedges. So, okay, one that we like to carry but is difficult to acquire are the true jasmines. Now, there's some that are easy to get, but so the Jasminum family, the original good jasmine was the Arabian jasmine, peacocky. Which is known as Jasminum sambac. We bought these in. This is not great. Well, that's not too bad a soil, and there's so little of it, it probably won't affect the plant that much. So the true jasmine, which they make jasmine tea out of the flowers, has good fragrance. It blooms year-round. It's just really slow to start. So we got some rooted cuttings last year, just about a year ago, and started them. They're like as big as this end of this branch. After 1 year, they've grown like this much. So these are $24 for a reason, because this is like 2 or 3 years old. Now they do start growing faster as they get some size, so plants grow exponentially. I planted one in my last house, and we kept it as a bush, and it bloomed year-round. Occasionally would send off a long stem, because it is a vine. It can vine out also. And I have seen them covering entire porches, like 20 foot long, and they can bloom year-round. They don't bloom that heavily in one spot, so they're not going to make a super show, but if you have a large plant, they certainly are showy and fragrant. So our own crop won't be ready for at least a few more months, so we brought in some of these. The other jasmine that we carry that's very popular and easy to grow would be the pink jasmine, which is Jasminum polyanthum. Now, they call it pink jasmine because the flower buds are a deep pink, but most of them open white when they open. So pink buds open white. This particular version called Pepita opens light pink. So it's actually a pink jasmine that opens pink, whereas most of the pink jasmines open white. They can grow, they're fast, 10, 15 foot a year, and they can cover huge areas, and they bloom heavily. So when they're in bloom, so they bloom, say, March through May, totally covers the plant in flowers, and you can smell them from 100 foot away easy when they are in bloom. So quite a nice bloomer. The neat thing about them is they'll bloom in sun or shade. They'll bloom inside your house. I don't know how they figure out the seasons when they're indoors. Pink jasmine occasionally puts on a few flowers in fall, but most of the time it's just the spring bloom, March through May, or sometimes February through April. Puts on a very good show. There's so many little dead flowers afterwards, they just recommend cutting it severely after it blooms to clean it up and then let it regrow. And these have been used in little hanging pots also. Just keep trimming, and then whatever you feel. As long as you leave about a foot of branches, they will bloom heavily in the spring in a hanging basket, sun or shade. There are many other jasmines, but they're not easy to get, and apparently there's a lot of races of those jasmines. I mean, we keep getting asked for something called one of the they say it's a sandbag. I'm not positive, but it's called Grand Duke. I actually have a few at the nursery, but we don't sell them. We try to propagate these. So Grand Duke is somewhat similar to this jasmine. It's got thicker branches that are more upright, not as viney, and the flowers are like, when they open, they're like 100 petals on each flower, like a little tiny button. Well, they're about that big. Grand Duke jasmine, but very sensitive to cold. I had a nice sized one. I put it out in my garden. 45 degrees killed it. Oh, it's just amazing. I'm going, okay, it's a lot more sensitive than the regular jasmines, which can go well below freezing. The Grand Duke jasmine's totally tropical. So we warn people if they buy one ever from us, we've sold a few over the years, what to expect from that plant. Okay. One of the first vines that ever interested me was the passion vines. And they do have just really complicated, interesting flowers with filaments in them. So they have normal petals, but then they have a row of filaments, and then they have the female parts in the middle. Now, most of these vines can make fruit, but most of them have to be pollinated with a different passion vine. So by themselves, they won't make much fruit, but if you have a different passion vine near them, then they start making fruit that's edible. This is Passiflora. I believe this one's most of the ones we sell are hybrids of either incarnata or one called Cerulean. And both of those and their hybrids will attract the Gulf fritillary butterfly, which is an orange and silver butterfly, and its caterpillars. We talked about that a few weeks ago. And sometimes these things get eaten totally by the caterpillars, but people love the butterflies. You'll sometimes have a cloud of these orange and silver butterflies flying around this thing. And most of these will grow about 20 foot in a year. We do have a larger passion vine. So this is Purple Tiger. Purple Tiger, bigger leaves, bigger flowers. I don't recall if I have a photo of this one. Yes, I do. So Purple Tiger is one of the larger flowered varieties. Red petals, purple filaments that are striped. So it's pretty spectacular. It really likes tropical weather though. So on these, it takes them, like this year, it just hasn't been that hot for very long. 4 years ago, we had a 90-degree spring, and these things would be in bloom by summer. But this year, we're having close to normal, but still a little on the cold side, and they haven't started flowering yet. So some years you wait until fall before they really get their blooms going. So they're not as reliable bloom-wise. Now, if you can pollinate this one, it'll make fruit the size of an orange. So that's Purple Tiger. Now this one's a little bit more of an oddity. This is Solandra. Cup of gold vine. It's kind of more stiff, and some people use it as a tall bush, but it's like if it leans against the wall, it's fine. The flowers aren't on it are like 4 to 6 inches, well, 4 to 5 inches wide. They look like a gold chalice, but they're like this. So definitely a gold color, and they're big. They're not that big. They're not that rare. We see them in most areas. And the last vine that we really like to promote, so we don't know of any of our local nurseries in California that grow this one, but we send away for the plants and grow them ourselves. This is the Clematis Thompsoni. Now these are old flowers. Clerodendrons come from Asia. And this is bleeding heart vine. We've been growing these for a couple years. They're just now getting mature to where they can really bloom, put up a nice show. When they get going, they really get a nice bunch of flowers that look like that. So the flowers are white with little red, white bracts. The red flower falls out of there. Quite showy when they get going. They don't take frost well, so keep them on the house wall. We've seen them die at a little below 40 degrees, but if you keep them on the house wall, or underneath the eaves of the house or underneath the patio, that should protect them well enough. But they can really load up with the flowers. I would say this plant will do that next year. It's a little bit young this year. But Bleeding Heart's another one so a lot of these things, we send away from to get them from across the country, because we just don't have any suppliers locally that do them very well. Any questions on any of their vines? I didn't bring some of the common ones in here that everyone sells. Yes?
For the purple tiger, how much sunlight would you recommend?
That needs as much heat as you can give it. The purple tiger, it's got to be hot. So I don't know how you get heat to it the quickest. Maybe a black pot on the south side of a house underneath the eaves. Get it nice and toasty, or in the ground next to a lot of pavement. That can stay warm. But yeah, they need it warm to get going. I mean, they would probably get going faster in Riverside than around here, because we just don't heat up fast in the spring, or at least in the valleys. Any other questions today? So we only have 3 of these to sell. I've got 7 of these left. We have enough of everything else. Stephanotus, I only have 3 little ones today, besides that one. And we did grow a nice crop of these. So. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.